Jesus, thou art a sinner's friend, as such I look to thee. Now in the fullness of thy love, O Lord, remember me. O Lord, remember me. O Lord, remember me. Now in the fullness of thy love, O Lord, remember me. Remember thy pure word of grace. Remember Calvary. Remember all thy dying groans, and then remember me. And then remember me. And then remember me. Remember all thy dying groans, and then remember me.
That works. All right. I've had some thoughts on my mind, but before I start that, I'd ask that y'all would all pray for me up here. For as a man standing here, there's nothing that I can say that would do you any benefit or do you any good. But if the Lord's in the matter, that's a different story. So please pray that He would be with me, that He might guide the words and put the words in my mouth that might be able to comfort you and to edify the church. And continue to pray. I've had a couple of different subjects on my mind, and not just like last time I got up here, I wasn't sure which way I was going to go. But I feel more like the Lord may want me to talk a little bit about one subject in particular. You know, the old Baptists have always, I won't say prided themselves, but have always held to the rule of using the Scriptures as their only rule of faith and practice. And I think that they've done that all throughout all the ages since Christ was here. Now, sometimes we kind of get away from that, and we kind of tend to follow other things. And we should not do that. We should stick with this book and the Scriptures that are written in it and follow them, and not follow men. Now, the world in itself has gone off in a different direction, and there are a lot of His people, I think, that are out there that are following something that's not the true gospel of Christ. They're following another gospel, so to speak. But that's not a gospel. For there's only one gospel, and that's Christ's gospel. Where I'd like to begin is in the book of Jeremiah, in the 6th chapter, in the 16th verse. Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But you know, Israel didn't want to do that. they wanted to go about trying to establish their own righteousness and didn't follow the commandments of God in doing so. But I think Christ was here and he set up his kingdom, and he said that I will build my church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Now, I think that the old Baptists are that church. And I think that there are a lot of things that come in and creep into her sometimes. There's evidence in Revelations. I know Brother Thomas has been talking about the 7 churches, that there's not one of these churches that's absolutely perfect. There's something wrong with each and every one of them. But each one has the commandment of God to stick with those old paths and to follow those. And to follow those landmarks that have been set down and laid down by Christ and the apostles. Now, over in, let me see here. I think it's going to be in Matthew. I always have a hard time finding my words. Here we go. In Matthew, the 7th chapter, the 13th verse. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth unto destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Now, is that saying that there's going to be few people in heaven? No, it's not saying that. Because all these here that it's talking about, those that go through that broad gate and those that go through that narrow gate are all his children. But that there's a lot of them that are going to go through that broad gate and they're going to lead, that leadeth to destruction. And there's many types of destruction that they can get into. One of them is the truth. They don't follow the truth. And there's only very few that follow that truth that was laid down in the scriptures for us to follow. But I think the old Baptist is that group that follows that. And one reason is so that down in the 17th chapter, even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Now, those that tend to go out into that broad way are worried about the worldly things. They brought in all kinds of stuff into the church, or what they call the church, bringing in all auxiliaries of all types and benevolent societies and that sort of thing. When none of that was even talked about or even mentioned as when the church was set up by the Christ or the apostles. It's only been a recent occurrence that those things have happened. But we continue to fight. That's been an age-old issue of fighting those things. Because there's some that come in and they'll say, well, you know, our numbers are down and we need to get our numbers up, and so we're going to see if we can try this and try that to see if we can get our numbers up. But it's not numbers. For Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. It's not the numbers that matter. It's the truth and the way that the people do those things and walk in a way that is pleasing unto God. Love thy neighbor as thyself. All those commandments, we must follow all those things and do all those things that he tells us to do. Just because we're now under the New Testament don't mean that we can't do those things that the Lord commanded us to do in the Old Testament. We have to take this whole book under consideration And we have to rightly divide the word of truth and do those things. Over in, I believe it's here in Mark, that there's some that worship a different gospel. And there in the 7th chapter of Mark, the 7th verse, howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. There's a lot of things that have crept in because of the commandments of men, crept into the church. And most of that's been the auxiliaries and the musical instruments, that type of stuff that have crept in. For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do. Now the Pharisees and the scribes wanted to get on to his disciples because they didn't wash their hands before they came in to eat. And so they were trying to follow these things that were commandments of men. It was not necessarily a commandment of God that they were doing. Over in 1 Corinthians, the real true church, Paul here is talking about preaching. And in the 2nd chapter of 1 Corinthians, he says, and I, brethren, when I came to you, I came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you, save Jesus Christ and him crucified. And I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling, and my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. So we need to always hold to and worship God in a true manner and walk that path that he's laid out for us and stick with those narrow gates, that narrow way, and not wander off into other things. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.